Hi, shalom friends. So bear with me. A fellow comes into a psychiatrist, well dressed. He looks like he's put together well, dressed in his business suit, carrying a leather satchel, briefcase. And he comes into the psychiatrist's office. Psychiatrist looks at him and says, "Mr. Jenkins, your wife pulled a lot of strings to get you this emergency appointment. Do you know why you're here?" He says, "No, I have no idea." So he says, "Well, I got to tell you, looking at the intake, your wife said he's acting very eccentric and perhaps a bit crazy." She said, "Well, women are women. I don't know what she means." Psychiatrist is looking at Mr. Jenkins. He really looks put together. He says, "Well, did she tell you why she thinks you're eccentric and crazy?" He picks up his hands in frustration. "I like pancakes in the morning. Because I like pancakes, she thinks I'm crazy." Psychiatrist is thinking, huh? I also like pancakes in the morning. To which Mr. Jenkins' face lights up. "You do?" And he opens up his briefcase. Out comes 40 pancakes. So you get the joke, my friends? If you like pancakes in the morning, I guess you're normal. But if you're walking around with 40 pancakes in your briefcase, it's abnormal. And when you think about it, you'll see if someone says, "I like a drink," that's great. It's healthy, maybe, certainly normal. But if you're walking around with 3 bottles of vodka the entire day, that's not healthy. The same thing about food. The same thing is about any excess, an obsession. So a person says, "I really appreciate feminine beauty." It's very nice. Well, that's God's gift to humanity. But if that brings you to unhealthy preoccupation, something's wrong with you. So basically, the story is, too much of anything is no good, right? Moderation is the key. So now I'll ask you a simple question. Can you think of anything where more than moderation is good? In fact, excess. Well, I won't have you break your head. The rabbis of thousands of years expressed it very beautifully, and they said as follows. The more flesh, the more wealth, you have more anxiety. But there are things which you can't get enough of. Torah study, more Torah study is more life. More you go to school, more wisdom. The more charity, more peace. Well, let's stop for a second, okay? Is there any time where it's too much knowledge? Well, on a very practical level, there's an English expression, "ignorance is bliss." I'm not sure where it comes from. And many of us would say, it's better not to know. Okay, maybe. What happens if you do know? Chances are, the more you know, the more not only might you worry and agonize, but in particular, the more you know, the more you'll appreciate. Just look around. There are people who don't know much about wine. Give them a good wine, and they say thank you. The more you know about wine, the more you appreciate it. If you could walk outside and see beautiful flowers, and it registers, that's pretty. If you know flowers and you know botany, you appreciate it more. Even physical health, many of us take it for granted, but when you study about your body and you realize how intricate it is, you really begin to appreciate it. The more knowledge is more pleasure. The more knowledge is more appreciation. The more knowledge is more human. I am, one of my jobs, which Hashem gave me, is that I should help people study Torah. Obviously, myself as well included. So many times I've had the opportunity to try to encourage a young man or a young woman after college, after high school, take a year off and study. And inevitably, the parents call me and they say, "Rabbi, he is not going to become a rabbi. He wants to be an accountant. Why does he have to study Torah? He knows already how to read the Hebrew. And I often wonder, what are they concerned about? So he'll study more. How could that be a bad thing? Have you ever heard of an average parent getting concerned because their child is spending a little bit more extra time in mathematics or science or even in the arts? On the contrary, this is wonderful. It's beautiful. Instead of only playing basketball or only doing things on the internet, they're actually doing something productive. You say, but they're not going to be an artist. They're not going to play in in a concert hall. They're not going to become a mathematician. They're not going to become a scientist. So why should they spend so much time in biology or so much time in earth science? And the answer is, it's knowledge. How could it hurt? It can only bring good. The one thing that I've heard is too much Torah, as if to say it's harmful. God forbid, it's not harmful. Torah is instruction for life. The more knowledgeable you are about life, the more productive you will be and the more fulfilled. Here, let me throw out an example from from Irvin Bunin. Imagine a person who has a talent for woodwork, okay? And for the first time, he comes into a carpenter's, and he's like an apprentice, and the carpenter says, okay, our first project will be making a table out of 3 large planks. So the guy says, okay, give me the saw, I'm ready. The guy says, hold it. What do you mean a saw? Do you have any idea of how big the table is? Do you have an idea if it's 4 corners or around? Do you know, it's going to have 3 legs, 4 legs, 1 leg? You don't start cutting wood. You know what? Make a diagram. Let's figure this out. And then you could start working. So the kid says, what's the difference? I'll figure it out eventually. He said, yeah, but by the time you figure it out, there won't be any more wood left. So you're squandering the wood on something that you're not going to use. So he suggests this as a metaphor for life. Life is very precious. All of us know that. So if you don't give a person instructions on how to live a life, you figure he'll figure it out himself. So some people figure it out at the age of bar mitzvah, at 13. And others are still 55 years old and they're still not sure. Do they want children? Don't they want children? Should they get married? Not get married? Do they want to be wealthy? Perhaps they want to join a commune. Do they want this? Do they want to be... By the time they figure it out, you know how many years have passed? Would you squander so much wood when you know that you're not going to get new wood? No, you want a picture, you want a deliberate plan. What am I going to use this wood for? How am I going to use it? What do I want it to look like? Well, infinitely more is precious life. So here we give a kid, we give him schooling 12 years, and then another 4 years, and he has no direction of how do I want to live my life. I have a lot of knowledge, but so what? What am I supposed to do with it? By the time he figures it out, sometimes it's never too late, but it's very late. So too much eating is not healthy, too much drinking is not healthy, too much running after ambition of wealth is not healthy. Too much Torah? Nah, more Torah is more life. Too much knowledge? No, more schooling is more wisdom. Is there ever such a thing like I did too many mitzvahs? No, my friends. Every time we do the will of God, every time we do, in italics, the good deeds that Hashem wants us to do, this increases in wholesomeness, in health, and in mind, and in spirit. Let me go back to too much is no good. There is one thing which I believe we could say today is too much, and that's exile. The Rebbe himself once pointed out that the Mashiach is about to come, but he hasn't yet come. So he quoted from his father-in-law, the previous Rebbe, who said, in the Tsar's army, they had many of the people had dress uniforms, and the buttons were like copper. So if the Tsar was going to come and review the troops, they would make the barracks spick and span. Of course, they all made sure that their equipment was efficient and sparkling. Their boots were polished. The last thing they would do is they would take a sleeve and sort of like brush the button. Literally moments before the Tsar would come. Said the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, a blessed memory, he said, we're on that time, 3,000 years, 3,300 years since the Torah, 2,000 years since the temple was destroyed. We're ready for the Tsar, kaviyachol, as if to suggest, we're ready for the King of Kings. We're at parade, we're waiting to welcome the Mashiach. But the last minute, we got to still polish the button. Beautiful. So we have the sense of, ready. Well, the previous Rebbe passed away in 1950. We're already a lifetime away. Said our Rebbe, my father-in-law was absolutely right. We're holding by polishing the button. But if you polish the button too much, it's not good. He implied that sometimes you polish the button will fall off. So how much more do we have to wait? And that is something that is too much of. Too much Torah? No. Too much mitzvahs? No. Too much goodness? No. All of that, we need to do more and more and more and profit from it. Too much physicality, too much eating, drinking, sleeping, partying, too much is not good. Don't walk around with pancakes in your briefcase. Eat a pancake and then do the rest of the day. Golus, exile, alienation from Hashem, it's enough. It's enough. Let's hope and pray that by the next YouTube, we'll be able to meet each other personally in the Holy Land of Israel with the righteous Mashiach. Amen.